Today we are doing a myofascial release and deep tissue combination massage for Liz here, who is on our table. As usual, we'll start off the massage with some deep compressions, and this is just to warm up the muscles. We are focusing on the muscle group called the erectors, and this muscle lies parallel to the spine from the low back all the way up to the skull. We will also apply some compressions downward towards the foot of the table, and we do this by placing one hand on the top of the glutes with one hand on the shoulder, pushing the body down. Transitioning into the legs and hips, we place one hand on the glutes, one hand on the calves, and we work our way down, finding the hamstring group and the calves. We do the same thing on the other side, finding the hamstrings, pushing towards the outside of the table laterally until we find the calves, and then we finish with a little rocking and a slight pull left and right, bilaterally, and then at the same time. Now the body is ready. Now to undrape the client's back, I start at the foot of the table. I grab the sheets and gently, slowly pull them till the sheet is at the low back. I prepare my oil. In this case I am using coconut oil, but if you have lotion or cream, that's fine too. Place the lubricant in your hand and rub it together vigorously. Now place the hands on the low back and work your way around the entire back. This technique is called an effleurage. An effleurage basically is a technique where you take your oil and rub it all over the body. This ensures that the skin begins to warm up, the muscles begin to soften, and it generally feels really nice for the client. We're doing circles here for the shoulders, crossing the spine, working around the neck. I generally like to do a figure 8 movement here. As you can see, I am pushing and pulling. Make sure that my hands are completely relaxed and that my hands are pressed firmly into the body. Now we find the traps and the rhomboids, which are at the upper part of the back, and we find the erectors, the muscles parallel to the spine, and we strip down. Muscle stripping is a general term for massage. Here we use the blade of the hand here with the fist slightly pressed together, and we are applying some deep pressure for Liz here. Always check in with the pressure with your client. Liz generally likes a deeper massage because she is an active adult. Okay, let's focus now on the rhomboids, major and minor. The movement is very slow. What I'm feeling for is the muscle to relax and release. This can take some time. Sometimes it's 10 seconds. It could even be high as 60 seconds. With myofascial release, there's no rushing. We're just waiting for the muscles to relax underneath the hand and the movement that we are applying. We work our way down the erectors until we find the lumbar spine and sacrum. And we start at the head of the table now. I'll take my forearm here, and notice I'll try to keep the hand open and relaxed. I will rotate my hand, my forearm left and right slightly sometimes. Keep in mind that this is not my elbow. That would hurt. We want to use the meaty part of the forearm. Be careful not to run it into the vertebrae of the spine. This would also hurt the client, and we're not trying to do that. We want the client to feel relaxed. Here we apply some friction with the blade of the hand. This is a quick technique. The idea is to create some heat. Once the heat is generated, the muscles begin to respond by softening. And we'll smooth out the muscle with both hands, left and right, left and right. And you'll start to see some petrissage here, where I'm using the thumbs and fingers to squeeze. We start to apply the petrissage around the traps. We do some vibration. And then we begin to go in an upward motion with the forearm for the erectors, up through the rhomboids, the muscles between the shoulder blades, until we reach the traps. And we begin to do it again. This time I'm a little higher. And this is great technique to release any tightness in the shoulder. And this next technique will be a fanning technique. The fingers are slightly spread, and we're just fanning the muscles around this shoulder blade. These rotator cuff muscles are nice to be worked on, as they tend to get very stressed and very fatigued. Here is a counterclockwise and clockwise movement I like to do for the shoulder blade. I have the elbows out, the palms and the hands are very flat. Most of the weight is into the blade of the hand, where my pinkies are, and it generally opens up the shoulder blade muscle. And we fan this out, coming down to the erectors, and then we move into the lower part of the back. This is where the obliques are. Around this area is where you'll find the rib cage, so we go lighter in that area. And once we find the PSIS, which is the posterior superior iliac spine, we want to work above that area and work our way up towards the neck. We are going across the erectors, but more importantly, we are trying to get into the multifidi, or the multifidus. And next we go into the rhomboids, working some pressure points and some trigger points here. We use the thumbs and press firmly, holding, doing some twists, and again just waiting for the muscle to relax. It can take anywhere from 5 seconds to 30 seconds depending on the knot and how severe that knot is. Okay, now we're using the forearm and elbow to track upwards towards the we take our time. Here we want to be very cognizant of the border of the shoulder blade or scapula. Notice now that the scapula, with all the work we did, is generally looser, and so we have some space to position our thumbs slightly underneath the scapula. Transitioning to the other side of the table, we want to keep this shoulder blade open. So one thumb stays underneath the shoulder blade while the left hand begins to pincer, also known as pinching, keeping the thumb under the shoulder blade. Now we take the left hand and place the palm slightly face up underneath the front of the shoulder, known as the anterior deltoid, and we begin to wring this shoulder out, left and right, up and down, in order to create more space for the shoulder blade. Once we find the knot, we can hold, and the muscles should relax and release underneath the pressure. We worked on the lats here and got to the lateral side of the body, the lateral side of the scapula, and now we are continuing with this work for the lats, and we are driving the thumbs into the ribs, being careful with the ribs until we get to the edge of the ribs and work into the lower back and across the body. We fan this out, and then we do more forearm work, placing the forearm at the lumbar spine, right above the sacrum. And again, we want to be careful of the spine. We don't want to hit the spine. And instead of finishing at the traps, this time we are going across the shoulder blade, and we want to apply pressure on the shoulder blade a little bit lighter. This muscle, the infraspinatus and supraspinatus, can be very tender. And in order to elongate these muscles, we like to take the client's arm and hang it down the front of the table. This will create a nice gentle stretch for the lats, and the rear delts, and this whole left side of the body. If you feel that your person's skin becomes dry, just gently apply more cream or oil, whatever you have. And we'll start to do petrissage here, going left and right with the elbows outward. And you can't see my body, but generally there is a rocking and a shifting of the hips left and right. We want to finish that motion other side of the body, and then we start at the top of the table or the head of the table and fan the movement down to the lumbar spine. All we're doing here is reassessing the skin and the muscles, feeling for any knots. We're also fanning and spreading all the muscles out and creating a nice sense of soothing for the client. Okay, with one hand on the hip, we fan the body from lateral to medial, or from outside to the middle of the body. Now we want to pick up the arm, and as we pick it up, we place it underneath the sheet again. And now we're just going to do some circles around the shoulder blade again. We do a little bit of reassessment, checking for the lats, rhomboids, and the erectors. We just want to make sure everything's even now, and as you can see, everything seems to be a lot looser. And so now that it is, we can spread everything out. We will begin to prepare the other side of the body. So we'll apply more lubricant if we need to. And we will do some work on this right side of the body. Looking for the shoulder blade and finding the erectors. Lots of pressure and a downward motion towards the low back until we find the PSIS, that hip bone. We want to turn off toward the outside right before that PSIS. More friction here with the blade of the hand, warming up those erectors, which can be very tight. Left and right, vigorously with some speed. And we can already feel that this side is a little tighter, so we have some work to do. Let's start with the forearm work. Be careful with the spine and be careful with the shoulder blade. We are only applying pressure to muscle, never bone. Clients don't like bones being worked on. So the work is applied down, the movement goes down towards the lower back. We're using the biggest part of the forearm here. We don't want to use the elbow, remember? We also want to keep the hand open so that it ensures we're not tense while we're applying this technique. Okay, so pretty much everything we did on the left side, we're going to do on the right side. So with the palm and the heel of the hand, we are muscle stripping up the erectors and around the traps and shoulders. We repeat this 3 to 5 times, making sure that we take our time, and you should feel the muscle begin to relax every single time. Okay, again here for the shoulder. This feels good. We're doing circular motions clockwise and counterclockwise. Left, right, left, and right. 3, 4, 5 times. This feels good for the lats, the rotator cuffs, the rhomboids, the shoulders. And here we're going into the forearm work again. Here it looks like I may be on the spine, but I assure you we are right in between the spine and the medial border of the scapula. And this is where we are applying pressure to the rhomboids and doing some very gradual tracking laterally towards the outside of the body in order to open up the shoulder blade. And as you can see, the shoulder blade did move, which now allows me to take my 2 thumbs and place them right next to the medial border of the scapula. And now I can move the scapula to the outside while tracking downward and upward, doing some separation for the muscles here. Notice I take a pincer or a pinch of the lats here. Really want to be mindful of the breast tissue that is right next to the lats. We don't need to grab that. We only want to grab the lats and pull and pincer. Now with the left hand, I am finding the traps while still keeping my thumb underneath the shoulder blade, and I begin to pull back and across the body. Now that that is loosened up, I transition my way to the right side of the body. Usually when you are transitioning, you can disconnect from the client, but I don't like to do that. I normally try to keep one hand on the client. Sorry for the angle here, but what you cannot see is the forearm being worked on the erectors. Now we can see that the forearm is very slowly moving in an upward motion. Again, we are moving slow, not just to be slow, but we are waiting for a response. You will feel the muscle begin to loosen up. We don't want to be too aggressive and force the muscle to relax. We want to allow the muscle to relax under the pressure. And it will. Again, it may take 5 seconds, 10 seconds. More work for the shoulder here on this side. We're trying to open up this shoulder blade, create some space for this scapula to move around. And so we place one thumb near the medial border of the scapula, right underneath the shoulder blade. And with the other hand, we're pressing into the traps and working our way around back towards the rhomboids. The left hand is now stripping the lats down towards the hip. And we again fan this out, spread it out. It's a little bit knotty in this area. You do want to be mindful of the ribs. Not too much pressure on the ribs. And we begin to petrissage now. As you can see, the skin is being pinched between the thumb and the fingers. We know that the muscles are looser. We know that the skin is looser and warmer, so we can use that opportunity to pinch and pincer the muscles. And here we do thumb muscle stripping with both hands from the upper part of the body down to the lower part of the body. We take the arm and place it to the side of the table, and we begin to do more work for the shoulder, the rear delts, down towards the tricep, and we will now work the side of the body, the lats, creating some space, creating some openness. We have the palm pressed against the lats here, with the thumb across the lats as well, working on the lats, the obliques, the rear delts. And here we're just doing some active movement for the shoulder. I have the client's arm with my right hand. I'm moving it up and down, left and right, while tracking the muscles down towards the hip. Now with a hand over hand, left and right, we are moving muscles from the lateral part to the medial part, or to the side of the body to the middle of the body, in upward motion, paying attention to all the bony landmarks. We want to avoid those bony landmarks. We only want to treat the muscles. And here there's just a nice pulling action across the obliques, the lumbar spine, the QL, the ribs, the intercostal muscles, the lats. And here we are moving the muscles up, left and right, place the hand back underneath the sheet. Putting more lotion into the hands. We're doing a thumb muscle stripping here. Up through the erectors. And we're doing a knuckle or fist stripping here. Place the fist down, deep into the muscle, and work our way up towards the traps. A little bit of the squeeze of the neck, just to make sure the neck is loose. We need to move the hair out of the way sometimes. This feels really nice for the client. We separate these traps again. And applying the fists deep into the erectors, down to the lumbar. Spread it out across the hips. And begin to do some thumb circling across the sacrum. The sacrum can be slightly tender, so be careful. There is a bone there. Once we work our way to the outside, it becomes the glute medius and minimus. And we just do some nice circles for the hips and the glutes. Okay, now to undrape the glutes so we can access them. We take a triangle drape hold here, and we undrape the glutes. And we're going to do some deep compressions here. Slowly. This is the first time we are getting to this area, so we don't want to move too quickly and shock the client. This area can be pretty tender as well. We're using the tips of the fingers along with the palms to strip laterally. Be careful not to put too much pressure with the heel of the hand on the PSIS. We want to focus mostly with the fingertips. Try to keep the fingers together if you need to, like I am. Use the weight of the other hand to apply more pressure, depending on the comfort and need of your client. Hand over hand stripping, and now some trigger point work or pressure point work for the gluteus medius and minimus. These are some hip rotator muscles. They're very active in walking, lunging, jumping. And we just want to spread this muscle out evenly, so we start at the glute medius and work our way up the sacrum, and work our way up the erectors, spreading out all the work we're doing to make it feel uniform and complete. And once we finish, we cover the client up, move to the other side. We apply the drape by placing one hand on the sacrum, taking the sheet, pulling it down, making a nice triangle here, and applying some lube into the hip. We draw down, out to the outside, back up, around the side of the body, the obliques, and begin to apply with the fingertips into the glute medius. Work our way to the outside of the hip. We continue 3, 4, 5 times. At first, it might feel tight, and so we're just doing lots of work until the muscle softens underneath the pressure of our hands. Be careful with the PSIS again, this hip bone. Apply more pressure with the thumbs. This is a little more detailed and specific. We always want to work from broad to detail, just to ensure the client is completely comfortable. We're pressing into the body and immediately into the body. spread out muscles, fanning everything out into the erectors, the QL, the obliques, feeling for any knots that we might have missed, and if there is anything we miss, we work on it. We never want to leave any parts to feel unfinished. And speaking of finish, we finish with the back here. We cover the client up. We do a little bit of rocking just to make sure everything's nice and loose. And that completes myofascial release, the tissue for the back. Thank you for watching.